So, Scott, I've got something here for people. Colby Plus wetsuit jacket. I've got one to give away.
Dare I say buttery one more time? Oh my.
I mean,
Buttery.
if it's the best way to describe it, then yeah, say it again.
Buttery.
Uh, so I don't know if you noticed or not during the Fiji event, but this is what Kelly Slater was wearing. And Surfline actually posted a photo of him yesterday on the boat, like in between heats, and you could see clear as day that he was wearing a Colby Plus jacket.
Yeah, I saw that. And I saw actually on the Colby Plus Instagram account, they had a picture of it as well. So Kelly representing Colby Plus because he's smart because it's buttery.
Well, I thought the guy was concerned about his diet, but here he is lathering in butter every day.
There's good butter, Colby Plus is good butter. The butter that I put in my coffee is good butter.
Do you actually do that?
I used to. I haven't in a while, but I'm a fan of it.
I mean, it tastes fine. I'm not convinced of the health benefits that people tout, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, I want to give somebody a Colby Plus jacket. Here's the deal. You got to be medium tall. I've only got one size available. It is medium tall. So if you are medium tall and you are the first person to leave a comment on our
YouTube.
YouTube show, today's show on YouTube, go leave a comment saying you want this Colby Plus jacket. I will ship it to you.
What's medium tall? Like what size is that, like 6'2", a buck 80?
I'd say that'd be a large. I'm 6'0", 175. So right around there.
Is that what you are? You're medium tall?
Yeah, medium tall.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, 180. Yeah, probably one. I mean, you'd have to check their website for sizing. I would say maybe like 170 to 180, and then around 6 feet tall should be good. Um, and then the thing is, Rob sent me this one a couple months ago, a month or two ago,
Yeah.
not knowing I had already purchased one on his website. So he's like, "Hey, summer's coming. I want you guys to have the latest stuff." I'm like, "I already got one." He's like, "No, I didn't. I don't think I sent it to you." And I'm like, "No, dude, I actually just bought one because I love it so much and I needed it." And the reality is mine is still in pristine condition, so I don't need to, basically.
Right.
So this is
Right.
for whoever wants it. Thanks to
Cool.
colbyplus.com. If you want Colby suits and bags, go to COLBY and then plus is PLUS.com or go see him at the boardroom show.
I was just going to say, I spoke with Rob last week and we're excited about Colby Plus being at the boardroom show. And he mentioned maybe a special guest shows up. Who knows, and we'll see. But yeah, Colby Plus, they're going to have deals on wetsuits at the boardroom show.
Yeah.
And we'll be announcing those. So probably full suits as we move into the winter time, fall, winter time here in October. So more will be revealed.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to check out the bags that we love so much too. So go to colbyplus.com, of course. And then the other update is waterwaystravel.com. We know them, we love them. We used them in El Salvador. One of the guys on our El Salvador trip, Alex, actually used to, he's works in video production in Hollywood, and he actually used to work with the WSL even. He took the initiative to film a lot of our trip and then collect clips from the surf filmers and took the initiative to edit it all together. We have a 15-minute video of that trip that we are going to release on YouTube on Monday.
Wow, that's cool. That sounds like fun. Alex is a great guy, a fellow Charger fan, I want to add. And I had a lot of fun learning more about Alex and where he's at in life and what he does and his hobbies and his family and everything. It was cool.
I think one of the great things about the video is how well it captures the dynamic between everybody who was on the trip. The surfing is, let's say, not the reason to watch the video. I mean,
What do you mean? You got a sick one.
I rewatched it yesterday. Everybody was actually ripping. Like, if you're going to invite 20 people from
Wait a
all
minute.
around the
Hold
world,
on. Back up a little bit. Do you want to say that one more time? You can still edit this. Are you sure everyone was ripping? Because I'm going to question that.
what I mean is, you don't go to watch this because you pull up YouTube. There's Torren Martyn over here, there's 𝐿𝐴 over here, and then you watch us
Yeah,
instead of them. No, you
I'm
don't
good.
go here to watch the surfing.
No.
But when I watched it back yesterday, and I thought these are all just random people from around the world working full-time day jobs and have a bunch of obligations, they're kind of ripping. You know what I mean? Like
No,
everybody's.
No, they weren't ripping. What they were doing is they were fulfilling their surf dreams. You know what I mean? Like we were all going on surf safari. We were going in search of that illustrious, rare, perfect wave that we're going to catch one day. And in the process of doing that, we we realized that it's the journey, not the destination.
Everybody who you thought you formed friendships with on that trip just took it down 3 notches because you said they're not ripping.
I know. I look, let's be clear. Nick Timponi rips. You're pretty good. I'm pretty good. Nick Timponi was the best surfer.
Yeah, Nick, definitely. Yeah, yeah. I agree with that. But I think we're both saying the same thing in the other thing, which is, yeah, it's the journey and it's the friendships. And that was the highlight of the video. You know what I mean? Like rewatching it yesterday. And I think Alex did a great job of asking the right questions and using the right answers to explain like how much camaraderie was formed on the trip. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of it. I appreciate Alex taking the time to do it. And of course, Waterways made it all happen. So we are going to publish that on Monday. We'll probably promote it on Instagram. But if you want to see what that trip looked like and put together a similar trip of your own, Waterways travel is the way to do it.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, guy. Yeah, guy, David. Oh my, it is Wednesday. It's the last Wednesday in August, and how quickly this year has flown by already. Welcome to Spit. This is the show where we talk all things surf and some other cultural stuff. And David, good morning.
Good morning, Scott Bass. We say it all the time. We've been saying it for years, how quickly the year has gone by. And I've heard people practically explain it in that, you know, the older you get, 1 week is a smaller increment of your life. And so a week flies by. When you're 1 year old, that's that's 1/52nd of your life. But now it's like 1/1000th, you know? So it just flies by quicker and quicker. But I don't think that's it, actually. I think that's only part of it. I think it's also the fact that we're perpetually thinking forward. You're thinking about the boardroom show. You're thinking about what's coming up. And so you're never just living in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think the phase, what I want to do in the next phase of my life is just try to be present.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it right there. And so that's why it's super important for me. I'm not going to pontificate to the audience, but for me, in the morning when I wake up, to spend some quiet time. And that kind of helps to, for the remainder of the day, you acknowledge that to be present. It's important to stop and look around and smell, literally smell what's going on, and take a deep breath in, maybe close your eyes, listen, and but I'm guilty as heck of, as you say, sort of thinking, out into the future and being concerned. And my wife said something great the other day. She goes, you know what? The older I get, the less I fret.
Hmm.
And I thought that was a really good statement. Like, think about that. There's no
I
need to
think it is.
fret. Like the things that you and I were fretting about at this time last year, do you even remember what they were? No.
No. And they probably didn't even come to fruition.
Yeah. So the older we get, the less we need to fret.
Good on her. The sooner you can figure that out, the better. There's another quote. I want to say it's Benjamin Franklin, who says, I've worried about a great many things. I've spent my entire life worrying about a great many things that never happened.
Yeah.
And that's the truth as well. Is like every day you do have anxieties and concerns, but how many of those things actually ever manifest?
Well, I'll give you a freaky moment inside the horrid neighborhood that is my brain, is that I sometimes um think about and fret about and am concerned about things because I'm afraid that if I don't go to the worst possible place, it might happen. But if I go to the worst possible place, it's not going to happen.
If you go
That's
there, then maybe you can kind of make a plan of action for when it does happen or
not
something.
even make a plan of action. It's
Really
much scarier in the neighborhood than that.
weird. Let's go deeper into this.
Oh, I'm a freak.
Yeah, it is weird, right? Like, so that's why, I mean, I hate to use the old hackneyed Timothy Leary quote, but I can apply it to just any level of exercise. Even when you're exercising, when you're surfing, you're forced to live in the moment. You know,
Yep.
like if you're on push up 32,
Yeah.
You're not thinking about what's to come later in the day, emails. You're just trying to get through that push-up or running on mile number 6 or whatever it happens to be. And that's the same thing with surfing. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
why
interesting. And I think
exercise.
that's why people like to work hard, because when you're working hard, I'm reading this book, Lonesome Dove, I'm reading by Larry McMurtry. Have you
How
read it?
fun.
It's a
I,
great book.
yeah, no, I don't think I've read it. I remember, so my parents had a cabin in the mountains. That was one of the VHS series that we had.
Yeah.
And then there was also the books on the bookshelf. So I think I'd look at the books and look at the pictures, but I don't think I read the book.
Yeah. Well, anyway, great book. And there's a character in the book that he's one of these guys that he's up at 5 in the morning having breakfast, and before sun starts, he's working, and he's just constantly working. And I'm not going to read into the book here, but you made me realize with your push-up sort of metaphor or analogy that anything you do that's just like you're engaged, it helps you to stay in the present. And that's probably why this character enjoys working so much. Although he probably doesn't even realize it, but it keeps him out of his head and focused on what's in front of him.
That's very good. I think so. Being present is key. The other final thought that I have just is when you are thinking too much into the future or just anticipating what's next, even in the course of the day, inherent in that is an anxiety. Very, very rarely is it a vacation that you're looking forward to. It's always like, oh, I got to get to my next appointment. And then when I get there, I got to be prepared for those things.
Oh,
And then after
yeah.
that, I've got the other thing. And so
Yeah.
all of that has embedded in it just this little tinge of anxiety that's
Yeah.
probably not a wonderful way to live for your health
No.
all day, every day,
Yeah, it's not. How do we get
So
out of that? Morning
present.
quiet time, meditation.
Yeah. So let me ask you this real quick on the
Yeah.
morning quiet time. When do you, at what point after your eyes open, do you grab your phone?
I grab my phone right away because my alarm is usually going off. So I hit my alarm, grab my phone, go take a piss, and then put my phone away and go and sit in my little quiet space and spend time there.
But you take the phone with you into the bathroom and doom scroll or check your notifications.
Why I'm pissing?
You just said I grab my
No, I don't. I
phone
don't
and
take
then I
the
go to the
phone into
bathroom
the
and then I put my phone away.
I don't take the phone into the bathroom, but
Okay.
I take the phone out into the kitchen area next to the coffee
Okay.
and put it away and then go into my living room and sit.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it works. Works for me for like a couple hours.
Good.
Yeah.
Keep it up then.
Hey, you know what? I will. Um, let's see here. Gosh, I've got kind of a lot of show notes.
Well,
We've got the WCT event at Cloudbreak to talk about. We've got some Kelly Slater news, believe it or not. The final 5, of course, is set. And I have a Who Said That, David.
let's start with who said that.
Okay. This is the segment where David and I try to stump each other by offering a quote from a famous surfer and seeing if you can guess who it is or I can guess who it is. So,
This is the
David,
segment where Scott stumps David, is what it is.
I
Every
don't know.
every week.
Who said that, David? And I quote, riding in the tube is like no other place in the world. No church has a prettier stained glass window than that of a flawless round tube. Being inside is so stony. Watching it spin up and over and down, then exploding below, all so fast it makes me dizzy. The explosions and echoes are so loud, but from the inside, I am beyond hearing it. I am fully conscious, but at the same time, I am beyond conscious thought. After the tube has passed over and I'm out in the sunshine again, I feel good. I feel clean, like I've just been born. David, who said that? Was it A, George Greeno, B, Jojo Perrin, B, C, Al Chapman, or D, JJ Moon?
That's funny.
What's funny about it?
JJ Moon.
Yeah.
Um,
Sounds like something JJ might say.
it does. No, I like it. I just feel like B is such an odd name to include, so I'm gonna go B. Could be any of them, but I'm gonna go with B.
You're right. B, Jojo Perrin. And you're probably asking, Who the hell's JoJo Perrin? JoJo Perrin was a Malibu surfer. He died last year at age 72. He was best known as a lightning quick 14-year-old Santa Monica High freshman who took on the best surfers in the state during the 1964 Malibu Invitational. And he finished third ahead of Mickey Dora, Mike Doyle, Rusty Miller, and other A-list A-team surf stars. He transitioned easily to the new short surfboards in 1968 and continued to have a presence in the surf media and on the competition scene. He also designed and shaped his own line of boards, David. JoJo Perrin was a creative and spontaneous surfer who looked for and often found new angles on a wave, new combinations of moves. He put his considerable talent in the service of trying new and unexpected things. And if you took your eye off of JoJo Perrin, you risked missing out on something spectacular.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Was that Encyclopedia of Surfing?
It was. That's from Matt Warshaw's Encyclopedia of Surfing. JoJo Perrin, of course, is in there. And we have a JoJo Perrin surfboard in the California Gold Surf auction. And it's pristine. It's a beautiful, like, gunny pintail thing. And it's super cool. And I'm excited about it. It's one of my favorite boards in the auction. It's not like a high value board, but it's just kind of got groovy 1973 Malibu vibes all over it.
Amazing. Yeah, very cool. Good little bit of surf history. I'm surprised, or I'm glad to hear that Warshaw actually has an entry for JoJo Perrin too.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because he sent me an email and I was like, by the way, JoJo Perrin, discuss. And then right afterwards, they're like, let me look it up. Maybe he's on EOS. It's like a bit of surfing. And sure enough, he was. And told Matt to disregard. You know, it's funny. I was watching, and I'm going to forget. I've already forgotten the guy's name. I should have written it down. I was watching the 1990 Bud Tour event at Lowers, the first event that Kelly Slater won. He was in a finals with Charlie Kuhn and I think Bud Lamas and Chris Brown. It was a 4-man heat. It was Kelly's first professional event. He won it going away. He absolutely killed it. But there was a guy in the semifinals from Huntington Beach, and his name was Joey Zintley. You know, now, most of those Bud Tour events, I mean, I was around. That's my heyday as far as I knew who was who, you know? And like, you know, like there's like Darren Brillhart, you know, there was names that you and I know that were in these semis, you know? But Joey Zintley, like that's like Dino and Dino's Joey Zintley. Have you ever heard of Joey Zintley? He's from your hometown.
No, I haven't.
Joey Zintley was in the semifinals of the Bud Tour event. And I was just like, who? Head scratcher. I've never even heard of this guy.
But how was he surfing?
He was surfing great. It just made me realize he's probably one of these guys that just like went and became a doctor and just bailed. Like he was just like, okay, this is lame. I'm going to go to med school.
I hope
like,
this.
Never heard about him like working at like, you know,
Body Glove.
Or who's the guy that had the surf shop in Huntington, the classic?
Bud Lamas.
No, the announcer guy.
Oh, Rock and Fig.
Yeah, Rock and like you know what I mean? Like Joey wasn't the manager at Rock and Fig. Like he just left, I think. I don't know what happened to him. Does anybody know what happened to Joey?
I really hope this podcast finds its way to Joey and he chimes in. Joey, send me an email, surfsplendor@gmail. Let us know what you are up to.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's such an unusual name, Zintley, that you could probably just find him on Instagram or YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just one of those things where I was looking at it going, wow, that's random. I know everybody. I've never even heard of this guy.
Well, I hope when this podcast does find him, he is sitting around a campfire, regaling his kids or grandkids with the tale of the time he surfed against Slater at Lowers in 1990.
He was shredding. And the reason I bring that up is because of what happened at Cloudbreak last week. The WCT, of course, at Cloudbreak. I don't think you and I spoke about it, at least the final day.
No, the event ran in, I think, 3 consecutive days after we finished recording this, I think.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And Griffin Colapinto won the men's, but the story, of course, is Erin Brooks and her victory there. She won the WCT in Fiji at Cloudbreak. She absolutely decimated the competition. And it frankly reminded me of Kelly Slater at Lowers in the Bud Tour event, his first pro tour win, where it wasn't just like a professional win. It was that Slater absolutely outshined him. I watched it today. Slater did an insane aerial in that contest. Everyone else was doing floaters and like slow roundhouse cutbacks. Kelly Slater did an insane hands-free aerial in 1990 in the finals of a Bud Tour event. And it was basically an anointment of this is the king. Like everyone just kind of laid down. And although all those other guys surfed really well, by the way, the surfing's pretty damn good. Like you watch it, like, oh, these guys are ripping. But for sure in the case here of Erin Brooks, it feels like I sense that it's like an anointment. Like this is the new queen. Like look out, Caitlyn Simmers. You had 1 year, I mean, the next 10 years on the women's tour is going to be incredible. And I think Erin's made it. Erin Brooks, Caitlyn Simmers, Molly Picklum. There's a bunch of red hot surfers that are just next level. Of course, with Mother Carissa Moore bowing out now, retiring in full. And guess what, David? You probably heard she was with child during the Chopu Olympics. So she's going on to another chapter in her life. And it seems like now we're anointing Erin Brooks. And I mean, you watched it, I'm sure. She was frigging killing it. Like she absolutely dominated. Like she didn't just win. You know what I mean? Like she just blew through the field and was like, let's do it again. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. So Erin Brooks, 17 years old, by the way. This is her debut CT event. She got a wild card into it and she won the very first event. She's also the first Canadian to ever win a CT. So there's a bunch of records already being set right now, which, as you said, Kelly Slater was doing. She's just thrilling to watch. She's so sparky. She's so fast. Everything that you said, I fully agree with. There's an element of watching her surf against Tatiana Weston Webb. There's just an element of spark and speed and desire, it almost feels like, where it's like she's coming off of an incredible top turn. I'm used to not only Tati, but almost anybody else on the women's tour, almost not celebrating that top turn, but kind of resetting and then lining up another section and going. Erin's coming off of that top turn. She's already in a bottom turn going blasting off the top again. She's fitting 2 turns in where everybody else fits 1. It's almost regardless of what the wave is presenting itself. She's got her routine. She's just going bang, bang, bang. And it's a big section sometimes, it's a small section. So she wraps it back into the pocket. And it's just, she's going to town on every single wave. And so it was very, very impressive to watch. A friend of mine texted me and said it reminded him of a young Kalani Robb, which I think is a fair analogy, actually, that kind of speed and sparkiness, like really light kind of footedness. We've talked about the changing of the guard on the women's side. I think we anticipated it all to happen at once. I think it's kind of slowly rolled, but she is the actual kind of, flashpoint moment where, Caitlyn Simmers is in first going into the final. She's in first going into finals day, but she was a rookie last year on tour. Same thing with Molly Picklum. She was a rookie last year on tour. And so we expected that to kind of happen on their rookie years, and it didn't. And they're still hitting their stride only 2 years in, which is impressive. But Erin Brooks showing up on event 1 and blowing up on event 1 is the real deal.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, right? Because I think about, for instance, when you're young rookie on tour and you have to face Tyler Wright in a heat, who I think is probably a pretty savvy competitor.
Yeah.
And also probably a little bit scary if you're a young 17-year-old rookie on tour. Like Tyler Wright's kind of gnarly. Like she looks like she could chew your head off. And Stephanie Gilmore, although she's incredibly graceful, Princess Stephanie, we call her. She's a competitive animal. So it'll be interesting to see. We haven't even mentioned Sierra Kerr, who I hope qualifies. I really don't have a clue where she stands on the QS. But if we include her and Bella Kenworthy, I mean, we've got a brand new, fresh, exciting, women's draw.
Completely. So Sierra Kerr, for the record, also got a wild card into this event and lost pretty early. So unfortunately didn't live up to the competitive, expectation that we would have for her. She's still an incredible free surfer, but I'm looking up the women's rankings right now, and she is not in the top 5 and not in the top 20. She's 22. So there's 2 events left. In theory, she could do well in 2 events and jump up there, but it might take another year or two for Sierra.
Okay, interesting. All right.
So let's dive deeper into the event, though. I was also very surprised to see Brisa Hennessy sitting in third, I believe, on the rankings right now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, Brisa didn't even make the cut last year. So to see her in the top five in the third position, I think is impressive. I was not expecting it. Obviously, Caitlyn Simmers is in first. Caroline Marks is in second. She is the reigning world champ. She is the gold medalist from the Olympics, and she's currently in second. Then you have Brisa. Then you have Molly Picklum. And then Tatiana Weston Webb, by making the final at Cloudbreak, jumped up 2 spots into the final 5 cut, bumping out Joanne Defay, who lost by a narrow 900 points. That's a tough loss for Joanne Defay.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for her. She obviously served great in the Olympics, and she's a tried and true veteran at this point, Joanne Defay, when you look at these young gals. By the way, 5 of the final 5 were all Olympians on the women's side. 4 of the final 5 on the men's side were Olympians. But you could even argue that 𝐒𝐿𝐲 should have been an Olympian, because he was the gold medal winner. There was some talk on the Barton Lynch podcast with Kelly Slater about, is there some rule we can make where the guy that he just won 𝐿𝐴𝐽𝐻 like a month before the Olympics, and he's the gold medal winner, seems like he should be in the Olympics. I'm not sure that, maybe there's some sort of ISA hurdle you can get over to get in there, but
yeah, I think the whole qualification process for the Olympics can absolutely be adjusted for the better. Like the fact that 𝐒𝐿𝐲, that's the best example, but Kelly Slater being the second best example of who should have got entry into the Olympics. I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive on Tatiana Weston Webb's barrel. Did you follow this controversy at all?
Not really, no.
So Tatiana Weston Webb got a 6.17 for a barrel that she did not make. It did not affect the result of the heat. She would have made that heat even without that score, but it was a change in the style of judging. Obviously, we've seen incredibly ridden barrels in the past, especially at places like Pipe or 𝐿𝐴𝐽𝐻, where they do an incredible job all the way up until the end, and then they don't quite make the exit, and they end up with a 1 or a 2-point ride. That's a traditional way to score an incomplete barrel. In this particular example, Tatiana Weston Webb threaded like 2 or 3 sections, did a bunch of work, 2 or 3 sections, and then didn't quite make the exit at the end. And they gave her a 6.17. And it was a controversial score after the fact in the commentary booth, but after the fact as well. And just because it sets a precedent, for giving decent scores to incomplete rides. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was thinking about it here as you told me about it. And my thought is that she fell. And if it was a floater and she fell, how would the score go? If it's a 1 through 10 and she ripped the shit out of 2 turns, saw a floater section, went up, did a floater, but fell coming down, she'd probably get a 4. I don't know.
Not necessarily. I mean, if those 2 turns were incredible, she'd get an 8.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So let's say it's an 8. My point is that there seems to be, I don't want to say hypocrisy, but like you can get an 8 when you fall on a floater, but you can get a 2 when you fall on a tube. Why is that?
So I think this is the exact moment that we need to analyze, because there's an argument here that this is progress for the judges. And then there's an argument, of course, that it's was a mistake. But I think the argument for progress is the example you just gave. She completed 2 maneuvers. So she's getting scored for the 2 maneuvers, and then she fell on a 3rd maneuver and therefore not getting a score. But the wave as a whole, she did a certain amount of work and got scored up to that level of work, didn't get scored for the final bit of work. When you go back and watch this particular tube ride, and again, maybe not all tube rides, but this particular tube ride, there was 2 or 3 distinct sections that she did the work and made. And I wouldn't say that she came out of those 2 tubes, but she definitely made those 2 distinct sections. The 3rd section didn't allow an opportunity for exit. So the argument or the analogy would be completed the first two sections, didn't make the third section, 6.17 is the score. If it, of course, flies in the face of a lot of other scoring traditionally that they've done with barrel riding, but this could be a moment where we're recognizing the flaws of the past and we're now making a change for better in the future.
There's going to have to be some discernment, especially like at pipe, where the first, let's call it two-rider maneuver for the sake of the discussion, the first maneuver is the entire wave. Or there could be waves where there's a first maneuver, you come out and you set up for like the gum sandbar section and get tubed, but don't come out. But I agree. I look many times. I mean, how many times did we went, holy shit, he only got a 1.5 for that. That was the most insane second reef drop, pull in, drive through. It was either going to be a 1 or a 10, and so there's no discrepancy there. We can't find a happy medium. I think we probably can, but I haven't thought through the other side of the equation. Like the people that are like, nope, if you didn't make it, it's a 1, no matter what. Like, what does that argument look like?
I think the reason why they make that argument, and I've made that exact argument in the past, is let's say the example of somebody who doesn't make the gums section, you still give them a 6.17 for an incomplete barrel. But then the next guy on the next wave makes a mediocrely good one. It's not a 10-point ride, but he makes the wave, gets blown out into the channel, and only gets a 6. Then the argument is like, well, that guy didn't even complete the ride, and he somehow got a 6.17, and the guy who out the back who successfully completed the ride only got a 6. How does that work?
Yeah, and I was even saying like the guy in on the first ride gets an insane tube at proper pipe, comes out, sees a little gum sandbar section, pulls in and doesn't make it.
Gotcha.
Right. And so, because now we have two maneuvers, we have the first maneuver, which was the original, which should be an 8 in and of itself. Then he doesn't make it.
If he would have just kicked out, that was an 8.
He could have just kicked out. It was an 8. Yeah. And so maybe it's an 8.6 because he fell in the gum section or something, or it's an 8.2. But they don't even count it. I don't know. And then a guy pulls into a meaty one at pipe, even gnarlier than the 8 that was just scored. And he almost comes out and gets blown out, but dives off his board and body surfs, and it's a non-make. That shouldn't be a 2.
Right?
That should be a 6.
Yeah.
If the guy who made it got an 8. Or a 5. Let's say a 5. I don't know. Whatever the number is.
It's a slippery slope, but I do think this is progress. And I do think discernment is exactly where judges will need to apply like very specific kind of analysis because each wave is different. You'll really need to try to tease apart how much work was done or how difficult it was to do the amount of work that the person did.
Commitment to a gnarly section.
I'm not convinced that the judges have enough time to really tease apart those details in a real heat, So if we go down this path, we decide we are going to judge all these little minute adjustments on a wave and score, then it would make sense to not do all the judging in real time. It would make sense to like have a heat, watch it in its totality. The judges can go back, then maybe they can make an initial assessment, but then they can go back at the end, review, compare side by side certain rides, and then assign final scores to the heat,
Oh man, that would be fun. That would be crazy. Could you imagine like a 30-minute heat? You don't even know how you're doing in the heat because no scores are being thrown up.
And you
think you're doing good. You come into the beach, you got last. Now you're pissed. Like you can just see how angry.
But I think that's a better scenario because then that also eliminates the priority, paddle battles and trying to adjust and then burn a guy at the last second because you have priority, but he needs a score or whatever. No, just go out there and surf. Don't surf to the other person's standard to try to block them or beat them. Just surf. And who cares what the scores are? And at the end, guess what? We're going to decide who got the better 2 waves. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I like it. I'm open to try it. Let's put it that way. right? I think it would be fun to check it out. And
I just think the further we go down this rabbit hole, and now you and I discussing this latest rabbit hole, it just seems like a square peg in a round hole. Like we are trying hard to make this objective. It is clearly unwieldy and subjective, and we're just trying to force objectivity on it.
I know that's because surfing's not a sport.
I know. And
one of the other things that makes surfing not a sport is the commentary. Like anytime there's commentary where a majority of what's being said is, "Oh, that was sick," it's not a sport. Sorry.
I know. Did you watch any of the Padang Cup?
Yes.
That's
what I'm referring to. I was like, oh my God, this is kind of embarrassing.
But it's better, right? It's more entertaining commentary.
It's more like you're hanging with your bros at the bar, like, but by the way, I'll raise my hand. I'm the first one when I'm watching surfing with my buddies to go, dude, that was so sick. I'm like, I'm that guy. I get it. But anyway, surfing's not a sport. I love this. I love watching what is now the sport of surfing, but it's just, you nailed it. It's round peg, it's square peg, round hole. It's very, very hard to do. And if we start to tease apart the nuance of tubes, that's what makes it so simple, right? If we just go, hey, look, he didn't make it, it's a two. You got to make it. Because that's kind of the thing in surfing. Like when we're out surfing, it's like, oh, my bro didn't make it, doesn't count. Like that's every day in the water. That's what happens. Along with, oh, he caught the biggest wave, he won. Like the concept of the biggest wave, this man versus nature. Nature won. You didn't make it. You didn't make it through the wave. Nature beat you.
Right. Nature is always going to win, but at best you can level up and meet it where it's at, Well, moving on from the Tate discussion, I was saying how surprised I was about Brissa ending up in the final third. Another shocker in this event, 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐬 making the final. I did not see that come. It was super refreshing, by the way. He was absolutely ripping, but I did not see it coming.
No, and unfortunately, the conditions sort of broke down for finals day, and there was even mention by Strider, I think, of that cheese wind that was going to provide for some aerial moments that just didn't occur. But yeah, 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐬, good for him, man. Good for Indonesia. That's great. It is refreshing.
Totally, yeah. Well, it's refreshing when he's actually earning it. It wasn't like through a circumstance there where he drew Gabriel and then Gabriel didn't get waves or got a priority interference or something. Like Rio was ripping, and throughout the event, I was just continually impressed and glad to see him, having the best event of his career. All eyes were on 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻 Dora going into the finals. I mean, 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐻 was the conversation, obviously, because he was behind the cut line and then he had an opportunity to seize and potentially get into finals day. And I think we had this discussion last week that he would be a wonderful addition to finals day. He's never been there. He could win lowers. He's got a kind of point of difference with his style and his smoothness of his surfing, incorporating super well-rounded power, rail game, and airs. So we would love to see him there. And then unfortunately just fell short against Jack Robinson, I believe in the semifinals. Maybe it was the quarterfinals, but.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the final five and you look at 6 and 7, you say to yourself, wow, Yago Dora and Gabe Medina are not in the final five at lowers. It's not to say the five aren't totally worthy. Of course they are, and they deserve it, and they did it throughout the course of the year, and good for them. And all of them are going to be fun to watch. It doesn't feel like there's anybody in the final five who couldn't win this event, who couldn't come out on top.
I agree with you. I think we have our own picks, of course, but I agree with you. Any of them could, in theory, win. And I was keeping an eye on those final five at this event, and I thought they all looked like they deserved their spot. Like Jack Robinson looked incredible up until his semifinal with Griff. Ethan Ewing looked incredible. Like I don't think of Ethan in big lefts or anything like that necessarily. I don't think that's his strength. But he looked incredible up until his semifinal against 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬, Yeah. So I thought they all looked great. Now, I've got an interesting stat for you.
Yes.
Griffin Colapinto took down Gabriel Medina. So Gabriel was looking also very good in this event, but he had lost to Griffin Colapinto, who went on to win the event, and Gabriel did not earn a spot into the top five as a result. So this was an important result for Gabe. You could argue he absolutely put everything into this heat.
Yeah.
In their 10 total matchups against one another, guess who has more wins?
Well, you kind of set it up. I'm going to say it's Griff.
Do you know what the split is?
10 events, 10
Yeah.
heats. I bet it's like something surprising, like 7-3.
It's 6-4, but it is still surprising because Gabriel beat Griff at the finals at Margaret River last year, but otherwise, it had been since 2019 since Gabriel's beat Griffin.
Wow.
So Gabriel's other 3 wins were the first 3 times they matched up, all of which were in 2019. Ever since then, Griff's been on a tear. He's gotten 6 out of 7 in that amount of time. So I would not have guessed that. Gabriel looks indestructible to me. I think that his man-on-man stats he's probably beaten everybody more than they've beaten him, except Griffin Colapinto. So I think that's worth noting.
More than that, it's a storyline that the WSL would be smart to accentuate next year, going into next year. Like, let's get some rivalries. Gabe Medina is, in many ways, he's almost like everybody's favorite now. I don't like, you and I used to kind of, especially me, I used to kind of hate on Gabe, mostly out of a nationalistic fervor. But once you get to a level of like Michael Jordan, to me, he's kind of got like a Michael Jordan-esque vibe about him from a competitive standpoint. He looks unbeatable. He looks like he wants to beat you. He looks like he wants to crush you. You know what I mean? Where, some of these guys, they're just like, they put the jersey on and it's all good and let's high five and let's let the best surfer win or whatever. You just don't get that feeling from Gabe. He seems more sporting and more competitive in his tone and his vibe and the mojo that he puts out there. So I'd love it if we saw a Griff Gabe rivalry. And frankly, there's some other rivalries with Gabe Medina, I'm sure, that you could tease apart if you looked deep enough, not even that deep into the stats.
Yeah, well, one of those, of course, is the man sitting in first place, which is John Florence. And John has 2 world titles. Gabriel has 3. Gabriel's not in contention now. John could clinch a third. That would tie them up for 3-3, which I think could set off, a whole decade's worth.
Would John retire if he wins?
You know what?
Or take a year off or whatever.
I wouldn't bet money on it, but I do fully understand if he did retire.
I do too.
And I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past. John doesn't need the world tour at this point. John's legacy is far greater and more diverse than the world titles that his name is attached to. And he's got an Eddie win. He's obviously got a brand that's thriving, which I've got on right now.
By the way, they're a sponsor. It should be noted what an incredible job you're doing with your podcast. Like, you're sort of, and I've said this before, but you're like the guy now. Like, I think that who's like a really famous, like PBS, who's a super famous.
Well, I hate to mention Charlie Rose because he got canceled, but Charlie Rose was.
You're the Charlie Rose. But congratulations. I mean, you're kind of pumping out podcasts at a torrid pace, and they're all with great guests. And I bring that up because of your Florence Marine X. They're a sponsor of your Surf Splendor podcast, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
Back to John. So back to John.
So his legacy is more diverse and greater than the world title. And the other thing is, you get to a point where your brand is bigger than the WSL. Gabriel Medina is certainly at that point. Kelly Slater is at that point.
Let me chime in there because you bring up a great point. The Florence brand, right? If he was to retire, what does that mean? It means Nathan and John go on adventures together. We're assuming, like, we have 2 free surfers in our brand now. I think it's better for the brand if John stays on tour. We've got a CT guy and we've got Nathan, and we're kind of covering both the bases. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, but if you're Pat O'Connell or whoever running the team, like trying to move the people around the ship here, better to have one on the CT and one free surfer.
Yeah, if the CT maintains the relevance that it has in the past at times.
Well, the Cloudbreak Final 5 thing, I almost think the WSL was like, oh shit, we got to keep John on. We got to keep these guys on. We got to make sure we're serious. Let's do it at Cloudbreak. That'll entice them to stay on tour.
Maybe, yeah, that's a great point. Because that would be the only ultimately at the end of the day, if John said, I'm in the prime of my life and I want to surf the best waves in the prime when I'm capable of surfing them, and I've spent too many years on this tour surfing mediocre waves, it's not a good use of my time. I think that is the equation John would run in his head and probably already has run in his head. And so through a certain analysis, he gives credibility to the WSL. So if he leaves the WSL, they're actually less valuable, So yeah. There would be some negotiation on my part if I was John with the WSL of like, we need to not be running in crappy beach breaks. We need to make sure we're running in optimal swell windows, those kind of conversations. Otherwise,
it'd be great if he leveraged that. I would love that. I hope they do that. I don't know how they do that, but let me ask you this. Abu Dhabi, does that excite John Florence to be surfing in a CT event at Abu Dhabi, which is Kelly Slater's wave pool, but on steroids, from what I'm told? Much longer. I don't know if it's bigger, but it's going to be a new experience for the WSL. Is that good for the John Florence brand to be at the CT?
Not only do I not think it excites him, I think it's a waste of his time. I think he looks at that 2-week block.
But what about the brand's time? What about the brand being in Abu Dhabi and presenting the brand in Abu Dhabi to the consumers, to the people, to the culture of Abu Dhabi? That seems like a market, just purely from Pat's point of view. That seems like a market that you would want to tap into.
So that might be, yeah, that would be in Pat's mind, but that's not in John's mind.
For sure. Yeah. No, I'm thinking about the brand.
Yeah. I think, again, from John's point of view, I think he looks at that 2-week block on his schedule and is just like, what the F? And then he's getting a text from Nathan, who's getting kegged at a slab somewhere. And he's like, what am I doing?
That's going to happen regardless, like no matter where you're like, you can't use that as a reason to be.
I think that has been in his mind for the past 2 years, Yeah,
it could be. But I'm saying if you commit to the tour of 2025 to win the world title, Nathan's going to get his slabs. You're going to see the Nathan stuff. But you're like, dude, that's cool. I'm stoked, but I'm doing me, and me is over here in this lane, and I want to win a world title, and that means Abu Dhabi. I mean, you're not going to do the tour unless you're completely committed to it.
Yeah. Well,
by the way, can we just say right now that it is absolutely the case that the Olympics are going to be in a wave pool? There's so much talk. It's almost like a given.
I know.
Throughout the surf media, like whether it's whatever, Tracks or Stab or Surfer's website or even Beach Grid or wherever you get your info, everybody's basically kind of just said, oh, it has to be in a wave pool. Or I think it was who's the Sterling Spencer who said, have it at a wave pool or pull the plug. Or no, Justin Houseman, I think, wrote something for Surfer magazine where he's like, it has to be in a wave pool. And I have a feeling that in 4 years, these are going to be the same people that are like, you know what? It should have been a chopo. They're going to flip because Olympics in a wave pool is going to be lame.
I think everybody who's said that it will be in a wave pool agrees with you that it is lame.
Yeah.
However, when you take inventory of everything that takes place,
it makes sense.
Makes sense.
Business decision. And I get that, but it's just from a pure core surfer's perspective. I guess I'm willing to roll the dice on inconsistent, crappy Jack Robinson only gets one wave in the final type of situation over, I know what I'm going to get. I know I'm getting 3-foot wave pool.
Well, as a fan, I'd
rather watch the javelin or any of the track and field stuff.
As a fan, you are. But when you realize what their objectives are and what they're trying to achieve, then you realize it doesn't make sense to do it in the ocean.
No,
you know what I mean?
I agree. I get it. I totally get it. And by the way, I'm not emotional either way. Like I'm definitely going to watch the Olympics when, I'm into it. And I'm fans of some of the surfers. I want to see certain guys do well. And so I'm going to watch it and maybe it'll be good. I mean, you never know. But.
So back to the CT though, it's worth noting as we go into finals day that John Florence has more than a 10,000 point lead.
Glad you brought this up.
over 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐸 and Ethan Ewing.
Yeah, they shouldn't be in it. There should be 3 people in this event.
Exactly. So it means that if an event is worth 10,000 points, that even if 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐸 comes from behind the 5th place position and wins this event, he would win the world title and this event. But by the math of the tour and the entire season, he would be in 2nd place, basically, because John has accumulated more points. So the adjustment that we've suggested in the past, and of course we saw this happen to Carissa Moore last year, but the adjustment, or 2 years, I think, in a row now, but the adjustment that we would like to see made from the WSL is that in order to get into finals day, you have to have a mathematical shot at the final. So it doesn't mean that there's necessarily 5 in the finals day. Some years it might be 3. This year it would be 3 on the men's. Maybe there would be 7 on some years. But you need a mathematical shot at the title in order to compete for the title. That should be the adjustment.
I love that. And can you imagine Jack Robinson versus Griffin Colapinto in best 3 out of 5? Maybe that's too much surfing. I don't know. Let's say 2 out of 3. And then the winner of that against John in best 2 out of 3. I mean, it'd be pretty killer,
mm-hmm.
you know, and it would be like a finals, like you would see like at Wimbledon, you know, where it's basically the top dudes going at it for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Or like the US Open tennis, which is happening right now, famous for 5-set tie breaks that go 5 hours in New York heat, you know, and it's the same 2 dudes. And I don't know. I get it. Of course we would miss Ethan Ewing and 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐸, but we're also missing 𝐿𝐴𝐲 and Gabe right now. So
yeah, no, I like it a lot. And that drama that you're talking about and those long-term kind of head-on-head matches, I think is really exciting. And that's what I did like about this Cloudbreak event going into finals day, was that you could see the tip of the spear already. You know, you knew exactly which equations needed to happen for people to get the result that they're looking for and get in the finals day. Whereas earlier in the season, and when there's 32 surfers, it's too many storylines to even track. And so now when it gets to this pointy end, we can see exactly the light at the end of the tunnel. You can then invest, you can then start rooting, you can then root against. So all of that is good, I think, just for the fan experience and engagement. So it could obviously be done earlier in the season with fewer surfers on tour and all that kind of stuff, but we've talked about that ad nauseum, but it's great to be at this point.
Yeah. I'm just looking at my fantasy team final rankings. 15th in my league.
Out of how many?
26.
Square in the middle.
Not so good.
Do you have a guess on how finals day plays out for the for the men and the women?
I do. Well, here's the thing. The forecast is not good. It starts September 6th, which is about 8 or 9 days away.
I didn't realize it was that soon.
Yeah, September 6th through the 14th. And right now, it's going to be waist to chest high at best. Many days in the waiting period are 2 to 3 feet. So what they're hoping for, and I think what could come to fruition, is a hurricane. They need a hurricane. Right now, there's not a ton of Southern Hemisphere swell. And that's, by the way, going off of Surfline, which is always rather optimistic, especially a week or 10 days out. And it's just not a lot of energy down in the Southern Hemisphere. So a hurricane, we're all sort of, you know, doing a claw warbrick with our hands here and trying to get a hurricane to form up. And that would be good. But right now the waves are small. So that tells me I kind of feel like Griffin is going to be the guy to beat here. And he's not even the guy I want.
Wow.
By the way, I want John to win. But I think Griffin's going to be the guy to beat in 3 to 4 foot surf. Like if you go to the Trestles cam right now on Surfline, that's what it's going to be like. And they say it's 3 to 5, but it's waist high with chest high sets.
So by virtue of winning Cloudbreak, Griffin put himself squarely into 2nd position. He was in 3rd previously going into the event, but 2nd, I think, is a big help, especially if the waves are, like you said. I can't look past John. I mean,
look, I mean, you're wearing the clothes, man. They're your partner, you know, like, what are you going to do? Like go against John and then like send him an invoice for the next month? You're biased, dude. You are biased. I want John too, by the way. I'm a big fan.
I can't argue against what you're saying, but I would like to think that's not influencing my opinion. And I would like to think I've had this opinion long before our partnership has been established.
And I'm just kidding. I know you have.
I look at John. I look at John and he's a better surfer than he's a better surfer than Griff. Look at what he did. I remember
big. John's 6'2", 190 pounds.
I know.
It's going to be 2 to 3 feet.
You said 3 to 4.
Well, I think what's going to happen, I'm going to interrupt you. I think what's going to happen is 𝐿𝐸 is going to blitz through, just like Tasmanian devil. He's going to blitz through Ethan Ewing and Jack Robinson, run out of steam against Griff. And then Griff's going to beat Jack, who's been watching feeble waves roll through and is just uninspired.
Mark your words, because I think that's a great call. I would write that down. Don't forget you said it and claim.
Well, we've recorded it. So.
I know, but I forget everything we record and I never go back. I think that's a great call because certainly the forecast benefits 𝐿𝐸, but I agree he could also run out of steam at a certain point. The other thing is you mentioned Jack Robinson. Jack Robinson is the one who's going to suffer the most with a crappy forecast. Jack Robinson, as much as I love him as a surfer, I feel he feels from appearance
heavy. He feels
and slow.
Footed.
He just looks slow to me. And I don't think he is. If I saw him in real life, I guarantee he'd be. Yeah,
I agree. I have the same feeling with him, though. I know what you mean. Like, I'm just like, he's super sparky, everything we've ever seen him do. But for some reason, I'm like, it feels like he's bogging.
He just moves slower. And then Ethan Ewing, I feel like, has tons of zest and spark.
Totally. But 𝐿𝐸 is going to march through him.
I mean, when I think back to Ethan's performance last year, it was insane. It was
what it was surprising. What it was surprising.
Okay.
It was insane, but it surprised all of us, like how great he looked.
Yeah. All right. Well,
sorry to interrupt.
No. You're not interrupting. I'm assessing what you're saying, and you might be right. But John, I can't look past. And I remember saying on air before the El Salvador event, he posted one free surf clip, and I was like, it wasn't an overhead wave. It wasn't small, but it was like, chest high. It had a little bit of power. And I remember saying, I was like, that one Instagram clip told me everything I need to know. He did everything on that wave. There was tons of power. There was tons of rail. He did a sick, giant straight air. Like he's going to win the event. I've not seen anybody combo up a wave like that. And sure enough, he won that event. And I feel that way. He was out at Lowers a couple of weeks ago and they posted some free surf clips and it was overhead. So that's the caveat here. But the way that he surfed the wave was just unlike I've ever seen anybody surf Lowers before. It just has that much more kind of rotation in the turns, that much more power, that much more whip in the tail. It's just on a different level. So I guess you're right. Like, does that translate to need a waist high surf? I'm not sure, but.
And how much does the hometown favorite and the cheering squad affect the judging? And let's be real. There's an effect. How much of an effect? I don't know, but there's going to be a Griffin effect on the beach.
Didn't help him last year.
Touche. You got me.
Well, on the women's side, I'm equally excited for, and I really think this comes down to a Caitlyn Simmers versus Caroline Marks.
I agree.
Final. They're in the top two.
Yep.
And I'm really curious. I am rooting for Caitlyn. I like Caitlyn's approach. I like her style, but Caroline is unflappable as a competitor, and Caroline is guaranteed to put 2 8s on the board in all 3 heats that they match up against each other, or 2 heats. So Caitlyn is going to need to unlock her best surfing.
Her air game. Caroline Marks does not have an air game that can match Caitlyn Simmers. If Caitlyn Simmers unlocks her air game, there's no amount of backside ripping that Carolyn can do that's going to beat Caitlyn's. But if this is about turns, Caroline Marks is going to not only have a gold medal, but is going to have a WCT championship.
Yep. Good. We're on the same page. I'm for it. For it. Cool. Well, exciting.
Speaking of WCT championships.
Yeah.
Grom to GOAT. This video sort of highlight reel, I think it was put together by Firewire. Taylor Steele did it. And it basically is a retrospective of Slater's illustrious and prolific career.
I haven't seen this.
you haven't seen this, but
No.
you've got to see this. It's actually very good. It's a little bit of a tearjerker. It's probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. It's narrated. Oh. It's narrated by various pro surfers like 𝐿𝐸𝐲𝐬 or I don't know who else does it. Tom Carroll, I remember his voice. So it's this voice, and they're basically saying they were all given the same script. It's one of those things where they all read it, and then they go into the audio editing and they pull out the best one. So you hear 𝐿𝐸𝐲𝐬's voice say, "You were the best ever," and then you hear Tom Carroll's voice go, "We knew from day one." And that, you know, so you hear different pro surfers basically chiming in. It's really well done. It's, you know, obviously it's Taylor Steele. It's going to be well done. But my question to you is, this feels like his retirement thing. Like, I know he's never used the R word, but he's got a baby boy. This thing was put out as basically as this is as close to a retirement tour as we're going to get is this video. And how many WCT events will Kelly Slater compete in 2025? David.
3. I'm guessing 3.
Which 3?
I'm guessing Pipe, Abu Dhabi, Tahiti.
That's probably right on. Now, here's the real question. What will his best result be in 2025 and where?
Round of 16, Pipe.
Wow, that's kind of selling him short, dude. Oh my God, you could have at least gone quarterfinals Pipe.
Look, fool me once, shame on you.
2 years ago, he won the thing. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
or was that 3 years ago?
That was, yeah, I don't know when, 2 or 3 years ago. But, you know, I'm putting all the blame on him at this point. Like, I would have bet money on him to win Cloudbreak. You know, maybe not to win Cloudbreak, but to certainly make the quarterfinals at Cloudbreak this year. He just didn't have it. Like, go back and watch Kelly in Cloudbreak, at Cloudbreak. And it's like,
it was like dad bod.
He looked.
There's some dad bod surfing going down.
It was very uncharacteristic for Kelly. He was on the wrong waves, poor heat management. Once he got to his feet, he looked unsure. You know what I mean? Like, he did not look confident, or like, I was really shocked by his performance at Cloudbreak. And I've delivered this exact same sentiment for over and over to you for event after event for year after year now. So I love the worship aspect of like, this is the greatest of all time. Let's just keep pumping him up, but it's just not reflected in the results and the stats at this point. So,
well, let me throw something out at you. He just had a baby. He's been doing the dad thing with the new baby. He's admittedly, I think it was on Barton Lynch's podcast, admittedly out of shape, not surfing a whole lot, unfocused regarding competitive surfing. I'm going to suggest to you that he already acknowledges what went down at Cloudbreak. He's probably going, yeah, I mailed it in, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be hyper-focused on Pipe. He's going to get in shape. He's going to surf. He's not going to do the next event the way he did the last event. This is his spot, basically. I mean, let's be real. Competitively, he owns Pipeline. He's going to be focused and come out and surprise. And when I say surprise, I mean semis. Finals, maybe.
Okay, let's make that bet now. I'm going to go round of 16. You go semis, you go finals. I mean, I would like to believe what you're saying, except the guy is going to be 53 and he's got a newborn at home.
I just said we're going to go spinach. We're going to go a lot of greens, leaning it up, getting rid of the breads. We're going to get rid of that little pork belly thing, the little back fat. Gone.
You're roasting him right now.
I'm just kind of like noticing what I got going on back here, man. Too much lemon cake.
I've made my claim. You've made yours. Let's see how that all shakes out.
What's the bet? What is that? We always do these bets. I don't feel like nobody gets paid off. Didn't we have a bet? We had some kind of bet that was $100.
That's why I said we got to write these things down. The reality is, I just want the bragging rights over you. I don't need anything at this point.
I agree with you.
My cup runneth over.
Yeah, I understand completely.
Well, I wanted to point something out. It's been on my notes for a couple of weeks. Did you read this issue of Surfer's Journal that I'm holding in my hands right here with Harry Bryan on the cover?
I may have flipped through it. Yeah.
Looks like February, March 2024. There was a really interesting read in here. Derek Hynd, famous for a lot of reasons, but one of the things is doing his power rankings. He submitted a idea to the Surfer's Journal that he would do a most influential surfers of all time rankings,
I
1
did
through
read this.
100.
I read this. Yes. I fully got involved in this.
I like this a lot. And so this is you and I need to define terms sometimes because we'll say, who's the best surfer in the world or whatever. And it's like, what does best mean? Right. So Derek specifically says most influential surfer in the world. That is his definition. And of course, talent matters in that conversation, but also whether they're self-made or paid matters, whether they're,
Can you hold on for just a half a second?
yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm back.
All right, welcome back. So Derek Hynd's most influential power rankings. For each person that he lists, he has basically a little criteria, which is how long they've been involved in the art form, meaning surfing, whether they're self-made or paid. So, what that means, what their footprint is. So international, unintentional lifestyle impact with the offset of footprint relative to the plus or minus sum of industrial and or personal impact on the environment. Also the point of distinction. So what things do they add to the surfing world? Or, are they just another pointy shortboard thruster rider kind of thing? Application, he gives an explanation of what they do. And then also, again, this is a measure of their influence. He gives a positive measure and then any negative measure. So Kelly Slater flying around the world, his carbon footprint is huge. So he has a negative impact on his influence, basically. And then he goes ahead and he lists 100 people with a little paragraph hitting all those points that I said. And obviously, totally subjective, totally up for discussion, but I really enjoyed the exercise of going through the list.
Yeah.
And what I was most surprised by was some people on the list whose names I don't even know. And I'm just astonished at how astute Derek Hynd is and tuned in, even at this point. Like he's aware of fringe characters in the surf world and fringe in their internet characters. They're not necessarily like esoterics, who are making some agave surfboard somewhere in Tasmania. It's like, it could be a YouTuber. Anyways, I was most surprised by his top 3 to 5. Kelly Slater, who you would think might be the most important surfer or influential surfer of all time, was ranked number 5. George Greeno, number 4. Skip Fry, number 3. Torren Martyn, number 2. And Dave Rostovich, number 1. By Derek Hynd's metric.
Yeah, that's cool. It was a good piece. It was a lot to take in. There was a lot of DH, or who we love. Like, I can't get enough Derek Hynd, frankly. And I actually sent when this came out, I sent Scott Hewlett a little text. I was like, I won't even read. What I wrote was maybe mixing some minimalism into the imagination. But
meaning what?
I felt like he chewed off too much. From, his criteria was a lot. It's kind of hard to match up. But by the way, I don't disagree with his top 5. Like there's, it's just a fun read. It's almost tongue in cheek in some ways. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's almost like, because his parameters are so out there, and in some ways they're kind of contradictory. And, but that's kind of the beauty of what these things have always been. When he was doing those ASP those ASP lists about who's going to make it or not in the coming year, they were always fodder for discussion. And I think he succeeded greatly in that. And there's just with Derek, there's so much, his prose is so sort of what's the right word? It's almost like, um, I don't want to say artistic. It's almost like, you feel like if you know, you know, but if you don't know, then you're kind of left out in the cold a little bit with some of the stuff that he writes, which is fun because it leaves room for somebody like me who's definitely not in the know to try to piece the puzzle together a little bit with some of the stuff that he writes. So good. It's a great fun read and very engaging.
I agree with everything you said, and I think his prose is convincing. Like when I'm reading it, I am convinced that he is right and that, I guess the fish has huge um, importance. Like it's obviously Derek's perspective, but when Skip Fry is number 3, and then you read the reasons why, and then Torren Martyn or Rob Machado brought back the fish. He doesn't even acknowledge Rob Machado's career when it says art form / lifestyle span, how long they've been in the limelight. For Rob Machado, he says 15 years. And I was like, that's not right. Rob Machado's been like, he was winning events, finished second in the world or whatever, like prior to those 15 years. And Derek makes a note in there that none of that mattered. Like that was just, he was contributing to the cacophony of sound that was a certain thing. But once he got off tour, he embraced the fish. And then all of a sudden now his relevance, his influence in the surf world has become profound, So you see where Derek's kind of preferences are. But what I was saying is I'm convinced when I'm reading it. And then I step away from it and I'm like, that's not my perspective. That's not how I feel about it. But his prose is such that it's very convicting. And I like that. That's what you want as a reader, is to be fully engaged in that way,
Well, the very interesting and unsaid part of this whole thing is that Derek could very easily be number 1 on his list, on his own list. You know what I mean? Like he's the provocateur. He's the
the influencer.
Yeah.
He's influenced a lot of this stuff. I mean, so anyways, I thought the most surprising,
Derek brought back the fish more than Rob Machado did.
Well, that wasn't said, but that was woven into everything. Well, Andrew Kidman is in here as one of the influencers, his film Litmus. And then, of course, Skip Fry is listed as number 3, and he marks 1993 as a flashpoint moment where Skip's minimalism is the seminal art form / lifestyle signpost. From the minutia of early coastal litter cleanups, there's been attention to minimalist details of base good citizenry. Pioneering work on body dynamics via daily quiver design, long to short, remains highly inventive and as underutilized today as in the 70s in mastering power to weight ratios in course of pure fun. Valid at the age of 10, 25, 80, beautiful. I guess I didn't read the part that I was looking for, but at some point he says the transition there in 1993 was down to the fish. He was known for longer boards prior, but in 1993, he shaped that fish. Derek Hynd wrote it in Litmus, and that was a big flashpoint moment that influenced what Tom Curran was writing later and all sorts of stuff.
By the way, we've got one of Skip Fry's personal fishes in near mint condition in the California Gold Surf Auction. And this is one of Skip's. There's Skip's boards when he puts his name on the stringer. It says Skip. It's a personal board, a fish of Skip's. I think it's 6'4". But sorry, side note.
No, that's awesome. The biggest surprise for me on this list was Torren Martyn landing at spot number 2. We've loved Torren Martyn since day one, or whenever he early days, and celebrated his films, all that kind of stuff. And so I love him. I'm just surprised to see him land at 2nd. But again, when I read Derek's writing, I'm like, oh, I'm convinced that does make a lot of sense. And what Derek really pinpoints is the drastic shift that Torren, I don't know, best represented. Maybe it was already happening, but Torren, like in the face of overconsumption and having as many boards as you can in your quiver and shredding and ripping as hard as you can and publishing everything instantly, Torren came along, minimalist approach, rode 1 or 2 or 3 boards max, even though he's traveling around the world, and then didn't post it instantly. In fact, wouldn't even get on Instagram for 6 months at a time because he was gone, And then once a year, just put out this beautiful film that was about exploration and surfing, and that's it. Return back to the roots. And so Derek's pointing at, not only was it impactful and like fun to watch, but it was just heavily influential, because if you look at how much marketing has changed in that amount of time and the way things are done, it really does embrace the return that Torren signified.
I have a dream, David. I have a dream, and this dream is that friction-free rider Derek Hynd finds the foil and unlocks the power of the Pelican, which is the friction-free foil ride at top speed. The foil was made for Derek Hynd. Like, I don't know where he stands on it, but I would love to see footage of Derek Hynd absolutely flying around as a 70-year-old madman on a foil. It's like the perfect thing.
That would be poetic, because he went down to no fins chasing the friction-free thing, and then he has to get the largest fin that ever existed to embrace the full exploration of the friction-free. It's the biggest fin that ever existed.
Well, the ones you learn on are, but you get down to some pretty small ones.
But that's the ultimate friction-free, is the biggest fin. He went the wrong direction to end up here.
This is my dream. I hope he hears this, and I hope he embraces the foil.
Derek.
Yes.
Do it.
All right.
Do it.
Well, look.
Wait.
Okay.
That Torren setup wasn't intentional, but it leads me to my must-see moment presented by Trees Wax. Petroleum-free surf wax. Available to you on treeswax.com and a wide range of the best surf shops. Torren Martyn's film, Reflections, came out about a week ago. It's a remash of past clips over the past decade, everywhere from New Zealand to Sumatra to Central America. Incredible film, though, and just beautifully spectacular. So it's called Reflections. It's on YouTube. You can find it, and it's only 7 minutes long, but it's a great, I watched that and I just want to mimic it. I want to study it and just do those body motions. That's how I want to surf.
That's classic. I find myself doing that when I'm surfing. Like, I want to do these body motions.
Well, I'm just like,
I think it's something we all agree. We all have experienced that.
I'm like, why does it look so easy? Okay, he's riding a little bit more foam, so he got into the wave a little bit earlier, so he can get up into a crouch and then just navigate that barrel without really having to like gyrate, Okay, so I need to ride the bigger board. I need to get in early. I need to just get into that crouch. Those are the notes I'm taking.
Yeah, some of the most pure surfing I've seen, like let's say in the last, 5 years, is Torren in Morocco in one of his films. I don't even remember which one it is, but he's in Morocco and he's like camping in his van or whatever. And he's getting these insane, big, meaty, long, drainy, gray, full suit Moroccan tubes. And it's the kind of footage where you're like, let me call my traveler. Let me call Waterways. I need to get to Morocco.
And the comfort that he exhibits in scary waves is crazy.
Yeah.
He just looks casual.
Good stuff.
So, yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Trees Wax.
You brought up Trees Wax. Christian and the Trees Wax team is going to be at the Boardroom Show. The Boardroom Show is coming up October 12th and 13th. You can get tickets now at boardroomshow.com. And we're about 6 weeks away, and exciting times coming up here for the Boardroom Show.
I've gotten a bunch of messages from people who are coming out. So listeners who
have been off the charts.
What has?
The mojo for the show has been off the charts.
Yeah, not just exhibitors, but listeners who are like, hey man, I'm flying in from wherever, booked a ticket already. I hope to see you guys that weekend. So I appreciate it. I know, it's incredible.
Stoked to hear that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, until next time, David, adios and aloha.
realwatersports.com has kicked off a couple days early their Labor Day sale.
They've got a sale, right? And I want to say, is it 10 to 40% off? Help me out here. 50, 60,
20 to keep going up
80
or down,
90.
depending on how you measure
free.
Everything's free. Everything must go. It's 20 to 70% off, and it is hard goods and soft goods, all sorts of stuff.
Cool. Well, the Labor Day weekend, it's a great weekend. There's a lot going on. There's the US Open tennis. There's the start of the football season, but there's the Real Water Sports Labor Day sale. Time to save a bunch of money. Check it out, realwatersports.com.
And then also driftline.co promo code SPIT. Our discount with Driftline ends on Saturday. The end of the month is your final chance to get your drifties at 15% off. Obviously, the summer months are ending, but stock up now if you want to get that discount. And you know what I would say? Look ahead to Christmas. There's probably somebody in your life who wants some drifties. You don't want to buy them at full pop during the holidays. Get your discount now. Spit is the discount at driftline.co.
That's a great idea. The Christmas gift, the Driftline Christmas gift. Buy them now before the end of the month here and keep the savings rolling.
Yeah, neoprene lined board shorts. It's just a 0.5 millimeter. Provides a little bit of warmth, cushion, chafe-free water experience at driftline.co. Promo code SPIT. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Talk to you soon.
Okay.